Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating case study about geography and destiny. We're going to explore how Sri Lanka's prime location, anchored right smack in the middle of the Indian Ocean, has historically acted as a major double-edged sword. It's a unique position that brought immense natural wealth to the island, but, as you'll see, it also invited relentless foreign intervention. Let's dive right in.
To truly understand the historical allure of this island, think about the English word serendipity. It means a pleasant, unexpected surprise, right? Well, that word literally stems from serendip, which was the actual name ancient Arab and Persian merchants gave to Sri Lanka. And honestly, it wasn't just some poetic nickname, it was deeply earned. Merchants who were sailing those early global sea lanes were constantly surprised by the sheer abundance of unexpected treasures they found there.
Section 1. The Cradle of Serendipity.
When we talk about Sri Lanka, geography really is destiny. Sitting perfectly between 5 and 10 degrees latitude north of the equator, the island is blessed with an incredibly lush tropical climate. And this climate is powerfully driven by both summer and winter monsoons. The southwest winds that blow from mid-May to October bring massive amounts of rain, upwards of 2,500 millimeters actually. All of that water creates this amazingly fertile soil and a huge variety of agricultural zones.
So, what's the direct result of that perfect climate? A staggering abundance of highly sought-after natural resources. The earth was literally yielding precious gems and pearls, while the dense forests provided ivory and rare spices, things like cinnamon, cardamom, and cloves. This immense natural wealth turned the island's natural bays into a bustling, totally irresistible hub for global transit trade right from the dawn of maritime history.
Section 2. Ancient Roots and Culture.
Now, all that global trade didn't just bring economic wealth, it transformed the island into a vibrant, living cultural crossroads. And of course, it was deeply influenced by its massive neighbor, India. For instance, Buddhism was famously introduced by Mahinda, the son of Emperor Ashoka, and his sister, Sanghamitra, who famously brought a sapling of the holy Buddha tree. At the exact same time, Hinduism was profoundly shaping Sri Lankan Tamil traditions. When you combine those with Islam, which was brought over by Arabian merchants, these diverse, overlapping influences forged a uniquely multicultural society.
But the exchange went way beyond religion. The island's close geographic proximity to the Indian subcontinent facilitated centuries of deep, interconnected cultural blending. We're talking waves of migration, dynastic marriages, and political alliances. All of this shaped everything from the Indo-Aryan Sinhala language to really complex traditional medical systems like Ayurveda and Siddha. Even the early architecture, the art, and the clothing were beautifully woven from these rich cross-cultural threads.
Section 3. The Colonial Struggle.
As the centuries rolled on, being this highly strategic transit hub in the Indian Ocean inevitably drew the covetous eyes of rapidly expanding Western empires. Because it was essentially the ultimate connecting point between East and West, European powers ruthlessly competed for control. Over time, Sri Lanka's sovereignty was systematically eroded. It was colonized sequentially, first by the Portuguese in the 16th century, then by the Dutch from 1656 to 1796, and finally, by 1815, it became a crown jewel of the British Empire.
Under British rule, the island's terrain and its entire economy were aggressively transformed. The British pivoted away from traditional, localized agriculture and replaced it with a massive, export-driven plantation economy. They started off with experimental coffee crops, but when a devastating fungus wiped those out in the late 1800s, the empire rapidly pivoted to tea by 1910, and then, to feed the absolute insatiable demand of World War I, they introduced large-scale rubber cultivation.
Section 4. Impacts of British Rule.
The 142 years of British administration left a really deeply entrenched legacy. It rewired Sri Lankan society in ways that were both progressive and devastating. On one hand, the British brought in modern structural reforms, things like the Kacheri administrative system, English law, extensive railway networks, and Western medicine. But we have to acknowledge that those advancements carried a crushing societal cost. Modernization was essentially paid for through the massive loss of traditional ancestral lands, punishing new money-based taxes, and the severe disruption of indigenous livelihoods. To fuel that massive new plantation economy, the British needed immense manpower. They solved this by importing heavy labor from South India. The demographic shift was just staggering. By 1911, imported Indian laborers suddenly made up a full 12% of the island's total population. This kind of rapid, engineered demographic change drastically altered the social fabric of the island, and tragically planted the early seeds for future class discrimination and ethnic stratifications.
At the exact same time, the rise of a new English-educated elite triggered severe cultural disruptions. Indigenous traditions were suddenly marginalized. Holistic Ayurvedic practices started declining in the face of Western medicine, and everyday dress and diets became heavily westernized. The traditional Pirivena education system was completely overshadowed by English-centric missionary schools. The colonial administration even introduced state-sponsored arak bars just to generate revenue, which inadvertently sparked widespread alcoholism among the working classes.
Section 5. Modern Horizons and Challenges.
Moving into the post-independence era, from 1948 right up to today, Sri Lanka still wrestles with the enduring consequences of its physical geography. It forces us to ask a really difficult question. Does a prized geographic location invite unavoidable vulnerability? Is the very same location that brought Sri Lanka its immense historical wealth also its greatest modern liability?
The physical vulnerability is incredibly stark. Situated right on the Indo-Australian plate in the Bay of Bengal, the island is completely at the mercy of tectonic forces. Because of where it sits, it feels the deadly waves of earthquakes happening far across the ocean. Tragically, this reality culminated in the loss of approximately 40,000 lives during the devastating December 2004 tsunami.
And beyond tectonic threats, the environment is facing compounding modern pressures. Climate change has triggered erratic rainfall and severe soil erosion, which is directly threatening the island's vital agricultural backbone. Furthermore, that pristine natural beauty that draws in so much lucrative global tourism, it's under siege from its own success. Uncontrolled coastal development is driving up pollution, toxic hotel wastewater discharge, and really heartbreaking coral destruction.
Geopolitically, that ancient struggle for sovereignty continues unabated in the 21st century. Today, Sri Lanka finds itself caught in a very delicate balancing act. On one side, you have this fierce desire for internal sovereignty and independent decision-making. But on the other side is the heavy, undeniable diplomatic and economic pressure from global superpowers. Nations like India, China, and Western nations constantly invest and interfere, all vying for a strategic foothold in this critical Indian Ocean hub.
Ultimately, modern Sri Lanka's absolute greatest challenge is finding a sustainable equilibrium. It has incredible agricultural, industrial, and touristic potential that it has to harness to thrive in the modern global economy. But it has to do so while fiercely protecting its unique multicultural identity, its ancient heritage, and its fragile natural environment from both internal pressures and external exploitation.
Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought about the evolution of Sri Lanka to take away with you. Can any nation ever truly own its destiny when its serendipitous geography makes it a permanent, irresistible prize for the rest of the world? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Keep exploring and keep questioning what you see on the map.